Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're taking a look at the case of Patsy Bolton Wright, who died on the night of October 22nd of 1997. That evening she had spent a good day at her wax museum which she ran, and when she came home she just watched some TV, had dinner, and as was her custom she had some NyQuil and then she went to bed. And shortly after taking this NyQuil she started feeling very poorly. And around 3 a.m. she actually called her sister Sally to say that something's really wrong, and that led to the sister and the brother-in-law trying to call 911 to get people over to where she was. But because she was redoing her house, she was currently in a rented place and they weren't quite sure where she was, so it took a while before people could actually reach her. Once they did figure out where she was, Sally and Steve were over there trying to get in. The door was locked, of course, and they found a window that was open in one of the bedrooms, and they crawled inside. Steve did and let Sally in. They both went to the bedroom and found a small table with 2 dinner plates next to the bed, which they moved aside to take a look if they could do anything for Patsy. They tried giving her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, which didn't seem to be helping. She just kind of lay there with her eyes open and she appeared to have just passed out, but there was no responses. And after a while she started to throw up this green liquid. She was rushed to the hospital, but to no avail. And later tests were done to see what was going on, why she passed away, and they found strychnine in her system, which was apparently a pure powdered form, which they found in the NyQuil, which was in her bathroom. Now, shortly before this all happened, she had commented that the spare key that she used to keep had vanished recently, and she had installed a burglar alarm. So we still don't know where that key is, and the burglar alarm did not go off that night, so it was probably somebody that she knew. She may have had dinner with them in the bedroom because of the 2 plates. She may have also just have had 2 things on 2 different plates for her own dinner. Nobody really knows about that. A couple of people were investigated, among whom a couple of ex-husbands and the brother-in-law as well, because apparently Steve was to inherit both wax museums that her and her sister Sally ran, and that is something that Patsy did not appreciate because he was really bad with money, and her sister Sally was in remission from cancer, but she could eventually catch it again and then pass away, and that would mean that Steve would get her wax museum. And both Patsy and Sally had planned a meeting to fix it so that he would not inherit the wax museums and possibly run them into the ground, but they were not able to have that meeting due to her unfortunate end that October 22nd. There was another suspect who was also suspected of setting fire to the wax museum and then going back to try and get the ledger. I believe he tried to escape at that point and nearly ran over an officer and got shot because of that, so we can't ask them any questions either. So with one person dead who was a potential suspect and others ruled out because the Steve brother-in-law, if he had known that there was strychnine involved, he would probably not have given her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, which is something that the police also noticed, because that green liquid that came out could potentially have killed him, and if that was part of your plan, probably not a good plan. So they didn't think that was his idea. So we don't really know anything more than that, and that is why they asked if I could take a look at this case with the tarot. And we're starting off with the Smith Waite deck, which is a slight variation on the Rider-Waite deck, which is this one. And for any other questions, we're moving on to the Santa Muerte deck, which is this one. Currently I have a slightly different setup, so probably the audio is slightly different, hopefully a little bit better, and the lighting should be better. I've got huge lights hanging over my head now, so we should have even lighting for the rest of our sessions, hopefully. We'll see how it goes. In any case, I'm just going to start shuffling the cards, and as soon as I have about a table full of them, we're going to stop and take a look. So without much further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we've got here strength in reverse, we've got the world, and then we've got the 9 of Pentacles in reverse. So somebody's losing strength here, and it's noticeable by the world, and this also leads to lessened financial situations. Could be that people were noticing also just them losing strength physically, perhaps also losing some strength in their character. This looks like somebody who is not doing well. I think physically not doing well, but it is somebody who's used to being in control, I think, because the next card that we have here is the King of Wands. Now, as I usually say, it may look like a male because it's the king, but it could also be a female who just has a good amount of masculine energy, somebody who is fairly confident, very assertive. Next to that we see the Fool in reverse, so this is somebody who is probably no fool. They have a very strict plan. They never really let anything to chance. And on the end there we have the Magician, who is in reverse, which is interesting because the King of Wands, like I said, is somebody who really knows what they want. Very assertive, like I said. And then we have the Fool here, so they're not taking chances, but the Magician in reverse shows that they do have some issues making things come to pass. I think that may have something to do with the reduced strength that we saw here with the first 3 cards. So this could be somebody who's very frustrated that they're not able to do the things that they wanted to do. Perhaps they just have plans that they really wanted to see come to fruition, but whatever it is, they cannot work on it. They cannot push them through because of the reversed Magician. Now on the other row I see we have a Knight of Pentacles over here who's in reverse. Now Knight of Pentacles is somebody who is very steady, tends to work very hard on the things that they want, but in this case they may be working on the wrong things because it's in reverse, or all of the stuff, all the effort that they put into may have led to this barren landscape in the background, because as you can see, normally he would be working very hard and then there should be a field full of crops there in the background, but there's absolutely nothing. It's like it's freshly plowed, but that's about it. So that's all the Knight has as a reward for their hard work. Then we have a bunch of extra cards here. I think I'm going to pull these aside and do them last. We have this card. I gave it a name last time. I think I called it Gossip, but I'm not really sure because this card doesn't really have a name. It's one of those extra ones that comes with this particular deck. But I called it Gossip, and I think this may be them either hearing somebody talking about bad things or overhearing them talking about them, or maybe perhaps running their mouth, because the Knight of Swords is also here charging off into the distance against the wind. I think against the current that either they overheard something or they had a conversation with somebody who was gossiping about somebody else and they did not appreciate that, and they just kind of pushed back by talking up a storm, perhaps not towards the same person, but maybe that they, as a result of this gossip, started taking action. And then went ahead and took even more action because the Knight of Wands is next. So the Knight of Wands is the slightly less mature version of the King of Wands. So this is them taking action, first of all, words and with thoughts. Like after this conversation, they had a think and they may have spoken to a couple people and they were like, okay, now we're going to do stuff because we have the Knight of Wands here. We're finally taking action. Then we have the Empress in reverse and the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. Now, Empress is normally like a motherly type figure, somebody taking care of somebody, somebody who would normally be very caring and nurturing. It could be that this caring and nurturing side was repressed in this person and their initiatives were not going to suit at least somebody well, or the things that they were doing were not going to work out as they intended, because the Ace of Pentacles is normally like a new idea to gain things, to get to that garden in the background with all of the fruit and flowers, but it didn't work out as they intended. They really let somebody down as well. Then we have here the Four of Cups and the Star. So Four of Cups is normally not really wanting to make a choice of the options that are set up before you, but in this case it could also just be not having a choice that you can make. And also the Star, I think, is the focus being put on you, a lot of people looking at you. So this I'm getting the impression, of course this is only like stuff that I think I'm seeing in the cards, but this almost seems like Sally. Like, if you were to look at these cards, somebody who was fairly strong, because they both ran their own wax museum, the sisters did, and their strength was failing because of their cancer diagnosis. They were struggling with that. Everybody knew that she was struggling with that, and she was in remission, and of course that takes quite a toll. They are still very stubborn and they want to continue to do their thing. And then they have this conversation down here with the sister saying basically, oh, I actually want to take your husband out of our life insurance policy because I don't think he's good with money. And if you were to die, or if I were to die, he might inherit the wax museum, and that's a bad idea. So she may have taken this conversation at the moment saying, yeah, sure, sounds good. I know Steve's a little bit clumsy with his finances, etc., blah, blah, blah. We'll see about that. We'll plan an appointment, and then we'll see. And then after that, before the appointment could take place, they took action, which led to greater consequences than they had initially intended. Like, maybe they were only really thinking, if I just put a little bit in there and then she's sick for a while, she might change her mind. I'll have more time to talk to her about it. I'll have time to talk to Steve about it, because I don't think Steve knew based on his resuscitation attempt. And then maybe we can do something else, because we have here also we have the Ace of Pentacles, of course, but also this Four of Cups, like just trying to figure out if there is perhaps another way to do things. Currently nothing looks good, but there's still options here in this card. But in reverse, those options are gone, because the person that they wanted to perhaps change their mind of is gone. And now we're very much in the spotlight, because of course when somebody dies suspiciously, everybody who was close to them is suddenly in the spotlight and investigated. So it almost seems like they had to play this role all of a sudden, and they also had a precarious balance there between the earth and the water, so being practical and their feelings, to try and avoid suspicion and go to jail and something like that. It's kind of what this seems to read like. Of course, could be somebody else who was being thwarted by Patsy and wanted her out of the way, because that's kind of how this reads, like somebody who really wanted something done and then something got in the way, or Patsy said something about them that they really didn't like, and then they took action which took it too far, like a lot further than they wanted to go. Well, let's see what else we can get about this case. Let's go on to the Centaur deck, see what else we can find. Like, what about this person now? Are they still with us? Whoop, there's a bunch over there. At least 3 cards. Let's see. We have these guys. We have here, this is the Six of Wands, so somebody being cheered on, but it's in reverse, so definitely somebody losing their good standing with somebody. And then we have the Three of Swords, which is usually somebody interfering in like a relationship. Three's a charm, although not a good one, because as you can see they are trying to stab each other there, which is not great. And of course our third card, which is the High Priestess. Okay, so somebody was aware of something. It could be that somebody knew, maybe Patsy knew that somebody was coming for her, but she may have had plans, like, oh, she may have really appreciated this person at one point, but that got turned around, and it turned out that perhaps there were other people in play here with this Three of Swords on the end, which made things rather complicated. They also appear to be sitting on what looks like a maze as a floor, so like things were just really complicated between 3 people. So this may be a love triangle that's going on, and that ended up going very badly. Maybe she was seeing somebody and they already had somebody else on the side, and this other person became aware of that and may have come over to her house saying, I just want to talk, let's talk about this, and meanwhile having different intentions. Let's see what else we can find. These two. we have the Wheel of Fortune in reverse, so definitely things not going very well. And then we have the Two of Cups. Okay, so there's definitely some love relationship going on here. There is a connection. We already saw the Three of Swords. It could be that it brought these other two people closer together due to this action. Like, okay, now she's out of the way. Now we can go back to just being amongst ourselves. And also just committing to each other, because usually the Two of Cups and particularly the Lovers is about commitment in the long term to an organization, to a person, to a thought, an idealism, something along those lines. But I think in this case it really is just a person and a relationship that they assign to or aspire to reconnect. And the Wheel of Fortune in this case just showing that things turned badly for her, for Patsy, and that reunited these other two people. What else can we find? Are we gonna see them being brought to justice, maybe? Whoop. That one came flying out. It is the Four of Cups. Okay, so Four Cups again, so there's still no more options. It's almost like they're still regretting the things that happened beforehand. The Four Cups is still here. We had it earlier as well. So I think that even though they may have had bad feelings towards Patsy, they still have this sensation of not being able to move forward. You can also kind of see that they're sitting there looking very forlorn, staring at what looks like some type of large heart pendant between her feet, and the water is kind of pouring out onto that. So they're definitely still very much mourning her and mourning, I guess, the outcome of the plan that they made. Eight of Swords is somebody in a mental trap, and then we have the Hanged Man. Okay, so they are taking a new perspective. It could be that they are trying to get out of that mindset with the Eight of Swords being in reverse, like normally it would be, or it just could be that they're very, very stuck in their mind trap. But we see the Hanged Man, which is normally like taking a different perspective, like perhaps they have now gained some type of insight. I'm also drawn to look at the radiant lines around the hole there in the middle head, like the third eye of the Hanged Man. Like maybe they have thought so much about this situation that they've almost turned it into some type of spiritual thing, like this was meant to happen, and this is just part of my contract in life, and this is what I'm supposed to do. Kind of like a Judas situation, almost like Judas didn't survive his action, but like they felt like they were the executioner that was needed in that time. Like they've managed to somehow settle their mind with thoughts like that. They may be very religious, and maybe have used that to gain some insight into their own actions and not, I wouldn't say excuse, but explain what they've been doing or what they did back then, so that they can at least continue with some type of mental peace, I think. Anything else? Okay, these guys flipped over. It's three of them. Two of Wands. Alright, so that's being unable to move though, because Two of Wands normally like making plans, planning new moves, planning new actions as well, because of course it is a wand suit, but they're unable to do that because it's in reverse. You have the Three of Wands as well, but this one is upright, so they are moving, and I think this is kind of like somebody who cannot sit still, who cannot stay in the same place for long. For instance, one of my grandmothers couldn't live in the same house for more than a couple of years. She always had to move to a different place, and I think that had to do with the fact that she went through the great flooding in the Netherlands in the 50s, and she used to live in an area that was flooded, and I think that whole event just got stuck in her mind, and she just could not stay in the same place for long. She had to move. She always had to move somewhere else, and we were always visiting her in new places. So this is kind of the same type of energy, like even though they can't move on, they are moving a lot. So maybe they just can't move on mentally, but they are trying new places, trying new things, just trying to get distractions from whatever it is that is still haunting them. And then we have the Eight of Pentacles here, which is a great focus. So they may be on the move a lot and also have dedicated their life to something else that they've really focused on a lot. That may be also a distraction from it. Kind of like how some people, when they have been through a certain traumatic experience or they've done something really bad, they tend to then make some type of speaking gig out of it or something along those lines. Like they decide that now they're going to go and talk to all these different schools about certain topics and things like that. That type of work or that type of mindset, just unable to move on mentally, but moving a lot and doing a lot in the physical world. Let's see if we can get maybe one or two final cards. In this case, are we going to see them being brought to justice? Whoop, there we go. Okay, so death just flew out. It's kind of upright, though not really. I'm going to leave it right there because it's the final card anyway. Just let it lay right where it is. I'm thinking the first thing that came to mind when I saw this card pop out like that was that they are probably going to take it to their grave. They're currently not on the suspect list, at least not actively so. There's probably no evidence against them. And even though they're not able to let it go, they're also not going to confess either. So they're not closing the chapter, but they're also not opening a new one, and they're just kind of stuck there, and probably we're not going to hear any type of confession. Maybe once they're on their deathbed, they'll say something, but by then, of course, it'll be so many years later, and it won't matter anymore, at least not to Patsy, and possibly also not to her children. So that is what I'm seeing for Patsy Bolton Wright. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts. If you leave a comment and leave a like, that really helps the channel along as well. I want to thank you for watching. Hope to see you in another video, and bye-bye for now.